Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Python tutorial. Before we get started with the Python tutorial, I'm just gonna go ahead and read the word. After I read the word, we'll get started with our lesson for today. So what the word is Psalms 34 of David when he pretended to be insane before Abimelech, who drove him away, and he left. I will exalt the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. I will glory in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and rejoice. Glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord and he answered. He delivered me from all my fears. I sought the Lord and he heard and he answered. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. This poor man called and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all his troubles. The angels of the Lord encamped around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in him. Fear the Lord, you his holy people, for those who fear him lack nothing. The lions may grow weak and hungry, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. Come, my children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. Turn from the evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cries, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to blot out their names from evil. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit. Amen. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. Amen. He protects all his bones. Not one of them will be broken. Evil will slay the wicked. The foes of the righteous will be condemned. The Lord will rescue his servants. No one who takes refuge in him will be condemned. Amen. Psalms 34. All right, let's get straight into the vid. All right, let's get into the coding now. So this is a Python calculator. If you want a more in-depth explanation of different things that we're doing in Python, you can check out the first video I did where we made a chat bot. But in this video, we'll be going over how to make a calculator. Things that I went over in the previous video, I won't harp on as much. I might, give you a quick refresher, remind you a little bit, but I won't really be going in depth with my explanations of things that we already know how to do, such as inputs and stuff like that. Today, I want to really focus on operators, variables a little bit more, and I want to focus on functions and passing parameters into functions. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we want to do is we want to define a function. So the first function that I want to define is going to be called operators. And here he is right here. This is my cat. Buddy is going to be causing a lot of distractions for this video. My wife stepped out, but I'll try to keep his distraction to a minimum. But let's go ahead and start with defining a function. The first function we're going to define is pretty simple. It's going to be def, and let me turn off cap lock. It's going to be def, that stands for define, and then we're going to get underscore operator, and then we're going to put parentheses, and then we are going to put colon. And if you don't know already, we are on trinket.io. Link is in the description. We will be using this for our Python coding, but of course you can do the same thing in VS Code. It won't be replicated as well in Python Playground as we found out in the last video, but you can do the same thing in a lot of different platforms. I just need something where we have a terminal or output that we can see everything that we're typing in as we type it in, as opposed to just showing our input on the screen. We type things in and it shows input over our output. I want to be able to see our output as we are typing in our inputs as well. So that is why I chose Trinket. Trinket is pretty cool and it's just online. So I have linked in the description. But the first thing we're going to do is create a function. So to create a function, you put in DEF. That means define. And remember, a function is an action that we're teaching the computer. So every single time we have a function, we have parentheses. Parentheses are so we can pass in parameters into these parentheses. Now let me see, there's one thing that I wanted to talk about here. So when we pass in a parameter into a function, these right here are called parameters. but what we're actually passing in, like anything that we choose to put inside of these parentheses, inside of the parameter, is called an argument. So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we create a first argument, because we will be using code where we create our argument as well too. But the first thing we want to do is create a function. It's going to be called get operators, and this function is just going to have operator, which is a variable that I may have spelled wrong, and then we'll have it equal to input. And then remember, input from the last lesson is how we get the user to type things in. And then anytime we want the user to, we want to show things on the user to type in, we're going to put an argument into this function that we have right here, because input is a built-in function that's in Python, and we're giving it an argument. We're passing an argument into the parameters. The argument we want to pass in is words that we want to show on the screen as we are typing things in, so the user knows what they should be inputting right here. So what we're going to type in is this: enter an operator, and then or you could press C to clear or Q to quit. So this is what we're going to be passing into our parameters. Enter an operator, so that is plus, comma, minus, times, comma, division sign, or C to clear or Q to quit. So I'll leave this on the screen for a second, but we're gonna put this inside of input. And like I was just talking about, passing in arguments into the parameters of a function, that is what we're doing right now. This is just a built-in function. We don't have to make this function, so we can't necessarily see everything that's going on with this function, but I'll put the documentation for Python in the bio, in the description, so you can go through the documentations and look at the different things in Python and how they work. You could definitely find input. I'll make sure I put a link specifically to try to get you to the input portion of the documentations if possible. But here we have input, and we are putting in input, and inside that input we're passing in an argument. The argument we're passing in is a string, and these strings are words that we will want to display on the screen for the user to see. So let's keep going for a little bit. We could start now if I really wanted to. I just need to make sure. I'm gonna scroll back over to the left, go ahead and rewind and pause that. But we could just go ahead and put def. We don't have to put def, we just put get underscore operator. And then functions are cool because we don't have to type in all the code every single time we want to use operator equals input. We just get operator now, and then it will appear on the screen exactly what we typed in for our function. So now, since we put this function right here, it'll do what the function says. The function says get the input from the user. So that is what we're doing here. So, and this is what is on the screen: enter an operator, which is the string argument that we passed into our parameters. All right, now keeping it going here, we have, we don't want to just stop with get operators. We want to do one more thing before we get to that point. So after we get operators, we're going to go to the next line. Make sure you're still inside of your function. So def, and it should be indented, the O, and this next letter that we're about to type in should be a line. We are going to return operator. What this means is we are going to, inside this function, we're going to return a value. What we're going to return is basically whatever the user typed in, we're going to return that, and then we will use it in our code. So if I type in plus, I'm going to return that back. So later on, we're going to have operator equals, or not operator. Yeah, we will have operator. We'll have operator equals get underscore operator. And I know we already declared operator right here in this definition, but that's okay. We'll be able to use it again. And basically what we're doing is we're saying that operator equals whatever we return. And what we're returning is whatever the user types in. So we had an option to type things in. So whatever the user types in, we will return that and use that in our code. So that is what this function does. So now, continuing forward, the next thing that we're gonna do is create a function where we pass in our own argument into the parameters. We're gonna call this definition, and then this function will be called choose underscore next underscore number. And basically what we're doing here is deciding, do you want to continue? Yes or no. If you want to continue, then we'll set the current answer that we have for our number one. So we will be using num1 and num2. Those are our two variables that we'll be adding, subtracting, dividing, and doing all these different operations on. So we will say if you decide to continue, we will make num1 equal to our num2, or our result basically is what we're going to save this as. So not num1 or num2, but our result, we'll have our result, our answer be equal to num1. We'll set our answer equal to number 1, and then number 1 will then be our answer that we just got, and we can continue doing calculations on the number that we just got our answer. That'll make more sense as we continue, so don't worry about it if you're a little confused right now. I'll try to explain that after I type in the code, but I just want you to know what we're about to do before we do it. So now we're gonna pass in an argument. The argument we're gonna pass in is answer, like I just said. So we're going to pass in answers. So basically, think of the argument like this. I said a function is an action that a computer can perform. And then the argument that we're putting into the parameters are like a utensil or a tool that we need to perform that action. Like, for example, to build, you might need a hammer. So the action that you learned is to build, but you also need tools to make that come true. Or maybe you learned to write, and then while you're learning to write, you had to use a pencil. A pencil is like the argument that we passed into the writing function. It's a tool or something that we're going to use to be able to perform the action. This argument that we're passing in here is something that we can use to help perform this action. Sometimes you don't always need, like, except for example, if the action was to eat. Here's my dog again. His name is BOG. Go ahead and get off of me, buddy. But if your action was to eat, you don't always need a utensil, just like we don't always have to put a argument into input parameter. Sometimes we could just eat using our bare hands, but sometimes you need a fork or a spoon to eat. So that is a good example here. Sometimes we put nothing in the input. Sometimes we could put words into input, and it's just like eating. All right, so now that I got all these analogies out the way, hopefully that helped you understand a little bit better. Let's go ahead and make this function. So we're gonna have valid equal false. All right, so initially we're gonna have it set up for us to make sure this is a capital F. Buddy is back up on my shoulder, and he is trying to get onto my desk. This is gonna be a constant battle that I'll be going through all throughout this entire time that I am coding. But eventually he will give up and go do something else, like he is doing right now. But he may be back later. So we have valid equals false, and that's just me talking to him. That's how we communicate, you know. That's me telling him, hey, bro, go find something else to do real quick. So we're gonna have while. Remember our while loop from last time? So while valid equals false, we're gonna go ahead and ask the user, hey, do you actually want to continue? And then if the user puts Y, then we will set valid to be true, and we'll go ahead and continue. But if the user puts N, then we will go ahead and break our loop, or we'll go ahead and end whatever we are doing. So regardless of I take that back. Regardless of our choice, we are going to go ahead and keep valid equal to true, but we will go ahead and so what we do here is we don't necessarily break it and end it like we were supposed to. So we'll only end using Q. So this clear part is a little bit redundant. So I will probably take this clear out. We do not need C to clear. We'll just go ahead and delete that right now. So I'm realizing something way down the line in the future right now, and that is that I have the clear. It's redundant because right here, if we are still valid regardless, but if we choose to put an in, then we will actually be clearing. So that is how we clear. So continue with this answer, yes or no. So that is what we're doing here. So we don't necessarily need a clear. So I'm gonna go ahead and erase all that, especially when I get there. So I caught that now, so you don't have to worry about you thinking how we're doing something that's superfluous. So we're gonna go ahead and put equals equals, and then so while valid equals false, we'll be asking this question. At the very end of our operations, we'll set valid to false, and then we will be able to enter this if statement right here. But until we get to the end of our function, or until we get to the end of our mathematical operations, valid will be true. But while valid is false, we're going to go ahead and choose. We're gonna go ahead and, no, I put choice, so not choose, but choice equals input. And then we're going to put parentheses, and then we're gonna put quotation marks. And all we're gonna say here is continue with this answer, question mark. And then we're going to put parentheses and put y/n for the parentheses right here. So, all right, so continue with this answer y/n. So we don't need to clear, because every single time we're done, we will ask the user if they want to continue with the answer. If they put no, then we already know to clear. So we don't need type in C for clear. So once again, in the input, we're going to go ahead and delete where I told you to put type in C for clear. We don't need that, because we won't need a C for clear, because you'll be asking the user at the very end, what do they want to do? Do they want to continue with this number, or do they not want to continue with this number? So I'll stop and press play again. And right now it'll show nothing, just so you don't have clear anywhere on the screen, so it's not anywhere in your mind. So after we do that, we have our while. So valid equals false, while valid is equal to false. Choose input, and then every single time we call this, actually I take that back, I said at the end of, well, technically yes, I'm correct, but at the same time it's not really high. I'm just gonna be quiet on that. But basically, valid will equal false every single time we start this function. We will put this function where we want our answer to be at, but every single time we start this function, valid will equal false. So we won't be declaring valid to be false anywhere outside of this function. Valid doesn't really exist outside of this function either, so I can't just be outside the function and be like valid equals anything, because valid doesn't exist yet. If it's inside the function, anything that we put inside the function, any variable that we create inside of our function only exists inside the function. Just like in the last video when I went over for loops, how the variable we created right at the beginning of the for loop only existed inside the for loop. Any variable we create in a function will only exist within the function. However, every single time we call this function, the first thing we're going to do is set valid to false, and then we'll be setting valid back to true based on our choice that we have. So if choice is y or y, but we're just going to put dot lower at the end of this again. And then after we put dot lower at the end here, we're going to go ahead and put, yes, my wife is back. So that means the cat should not come back in here again and be trying to jump on my desk. But I do love him though, but brother was getting a little bit rowdy. We're going to say if choice equals, we'll put quotation marks and we'll put y. So if choice equals y, we don't have to worry about capital Y and lowercase y, because we already put dot lower. So if choice equals y, we're gonna set number num1 equal to answer. And remember, we passed in answer. So answer will be something that we pass into here. So then after we set num1 equal to answer, we're gonna set valid equal to true. Valid will be true. And then every single time we start this function though, valid will be set to false. And then if choice is equal to n, so if we decide to put n in our two options, then we will go ahead and say num1 equals float. And remember our float from last time, our float can hold up to 8 digits after the decimal. All right, so I have to check real quick. A float will give us about 7 numbers after a decimal point. And in the last video, I made a mistake that I fixed in post, so you probably won't hear it, but you'll probably hear me go over it and correct that mistake. But basically, a double can hold up to 16 to 17 numbers after the decimal point. Now, normally, if it's a calculator, we want most accuracy as possible, so we will use a double. However, as you see down here, double is not defined. Even if I spell it lowercase, double is not defined in Trinket. Now, you can use this in your regular Python code, but I will not be able to use it in Trinket right now because we do not have double that we are able to access in our code. So normally you would just type in double instead of float and it will work. However, in Trinket, it doesn't have double because double takes up more memory space. So we will only be using float for this lesson, but if you're on something like VS Code or somewhere where double can be used, I highly recommend that you take that challenge of replacing everywhere I put float in our code and put double. But if you're just on trinket.io, just trying to figure out how to get Python and get started and get everything moving and in motion, just practicing with it, let's go ahead and continue to use float. Also, if you're just concerned about memory for whatever reason, you could go ahead and use float as well too. But all right, let me go ahead and continue on with what we were doing. I just wanted to check on that real quick just so I could get you accurate information. And so a float is a data type. Integer will just give us one number, just a whole number. A float will give us a decimal, but it only has about 6 to 7 numbers after the decimal point that it will give us. And I say 6 to 7 because I believe it depends on if it is negative or positive, because the sign will end up taking up one of the memory storages that we can use. Each digit is like a memory storage, and this is only 8-bit storage. So if we end up adding a negative, then that will take one of the numbers. We will always have to have a number in the front of the decimal point regardless, so that's also taking one number. And now if we have a number plus a negative, that would take 2 digits in front, so that would take us down from 7 after the decimal point to only being able to use 6. All right, hopefully that makes sense. But same thing goes for doubles, but we can use 16 after the decimal point because I believe it is 16-bit. Now that all might be wrong. Or it's 8 bytes. So a float is 4 bytes and a double is 8 bytes. So we can use 16 decimal digits, and then we use about 7 decimal digits when we are working with a float. All right, so 8 bytes and 4 bytes, don't worry about that. That is well too complicated and things that I definitely forgot from my college experience. So I'm not going to get into it as well either. I'm going to leave that alone. I feel like I've already spread enough misinformation. Now back to this calculator though. So I just want to make sure you understand everything that we're doing. So it's not like it's dire to know these things anyways. I just want you to kind of, like I said, understand everything that we're doing right now. So when you just throw everything into ChatGPT, at least you know the things that are coming out, what they mean, and what you're looking at. So that's all I'm trying to help you with during this entire series here. But let's go ahead and continue, like I said. So now we forced the input, which was originally going to be a string, to be a float. After we do that, we're going to enter first number. Okay. After we do that, we're going to put a colon, and then let me go ahead and turn this off. My fault about that. But after we do that, we're gonna go ahead and put a colon, and then so we have first number. All right, so now that we have first number, we're gonna go ahead and press enter, and then we're gonna have valid equals true with a capital T. And then after we have valid equals true, we're gonna go ahead and put an enter, and then this time we're gonna put else. And what we're gonna put right here for else is if you didn't put Y or N, then we need to give a response for that. So you didn't put yes or no, brother, what are you talking about? I need you to go ahead and try that again, actually put something in. So we're gonna print, it's not gonna tell you what are you talking about. We're gonna say something very technical and robotish, like invalid response, or invalid choice. After we do that, we're going to go ahead and press enter, and then we will return number 1. So we will return num1. Don't worry about this invalid choice. We'll go ahead and repeat our while loop. If we get an invalid choice, we'll go ahead and re-ask the first question to choose the input, and it will need to give us a correct input. So we will not go ahead and return anything if we do not give a valid input. But we won't be able to check this to the very end, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep going for right now. So now we're gonna put num1 equals, and then this will be the same thing that we typed in right here if your choice was no and you decide to restart. So you don't really have to type this in again. We can just copy. Remember, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If something's already there, let's go ahead and use it. So there's no point in typing in the exact same line that we've already created ourselves. In this case, it's not another person, it was us who created it, so there's no point in doing that again. So then we're going to have equals 0.0, and then we're going to go ahead and enter, and now we're going to make a while loop. This one is going to be while true, and remember, this just means while our code is running, we are going to do something. So what are we going to do while our code is running? While our code is running, we're going to go to operator, and we're going to use the function we created earlier to get operator. So we're going to set operator equal to operator, get operator. What does this mean? it means we're going to use our function, and our function is going to return a value that we can use here and set operator equal to. And our value that we return based on our input that we put in. So we would put a plus, a minus, a times, or divide, or Q. We will return that, and then we will use that in our if statements down here. So now we have a couple of if statements, and we're getting to the point to where we're kind of almost done already, but we just have to do some simple math. But I'll show you, it's going to be super simple because we're going to be repeating the same thing, so you can just copy and paste it. So we're getting to the end here, even though it might not look like it yet because we have not calculated anything. The first thing we want to do is if, let me go ahead and exit this down now. So if you decide to type Q, so if operator equals Q, I want you to go ahead and quit. Operator is equal to Q. We're gonna go ahead and quit out. We're gonna go ahead and quit out. I just want to make sure I spelled operator correctly. The same. Who knows if it's correct? I mean, you probably know, but me, I personally don't know how to. I rely on autocorrect heavily. So if operator is not spelled right, it is spelled incorrectly the same way every single time, but I believe it's spelled right anyways. But operator equals print equals Q, then we're going to print, and it's simply just going to say goodbye. You know, we make polite robots around here. Even if you don't want to talk to us no more, we still want to say goodbye. You could have said absolutely no words and we're still going to say goodbye. After that, we're going to break. Remember, if you didn't watch the first video, if we put break inside of our while loop, that means in the while loop. And that means basically we are ending our entire program. Because after, we're not going to put anything underneath this while loop. So after this while loop is broken out of, the program will end. There will be no more code at the bottom. So after we do this, we're going to go ahead and say, we're going to put another, and then here you can put ifs repeatedly, like I was talking about before. So I'll just show you. I said this in the last lesson. You don't have to put else if. You could just put if again. It's good practice to use else if, but if you wanted to, you could just go ahead and put if. I'm trying to tab this to get it well aligned, but it's not working, so I have to use spaces. This is going to create a problem. Let me just go ahead and delete this one. I don't know what happened here. So in the while loop, we press tab. In the while loop, we press tab. All right. I mean, they're not at the same spot, but they should be at the same spot. I'll see if this throws me an error in a second. Maybe it's because I'm not putting else if, so it's just not respecting it. And I'm not going to be able to show you what I was talking about. Nah, that put it at the same place. So we could put this if statement if you want to, but it's bad practice. So I'm actually not even going to show you that. Why show you how to do stuff incorrectly or show you bad practices? So we're going to put else if operator, and then we're just going to continue. Now, this is the part that we're going to repeat. You could just put if you want to, but remember, if one thing happens, do something else, then we're going to do this other thing. But if something else, so if one thing happens, do something. If something else is happening, then I want you to do something else. If something else is happening, do this other thing. Else, neither of these things are happening, or none of these things are happening, then just go ahead and do this. So this is why we put the EL if, because this is an else if. So if one thing is happening, go ahead and break. If we type in Q, go ahead and break. If we type in something else, such as plus or minus, then go ahead and do addition or subtraction on our number, and so on and so forth. And then else, if we type in something that is not addition or subtraction or division or multiplication or a Q, then go ahead and say invalid response like we did earlier. So we're going to go ahead and start with our plus. So if operator equals, and then remember we use two equal signs when we want to have a variable equal something. We want the variable's value to be something. We put one equal sign. When we want to check if a variable's value is something, we put two equal signs. So we want to make it to be something, we put one equal sign. If we want to check if it is something, we put two equal signs. So else if operator is plus, and then we're going to go ahead and put num2. Now it is a time for us to ask for num2, and then we're just going to put the same thing that we have right here, but instead of first number, we're going to put second number. And you're going to watch me copy and paste a few times here because it's going to be pretty simple. and then we'll just get into the different operators that we have. And now there's of course more operators than this. We're just making a very simple calculator though. Just keeping everything very simple. I've already probably made this video like 30 minutes off this simple calculator. What we're gonna do is answer equals num1 plus num2. That is what we're gonna start off with. So answer equals num1 plus num2. Then we're gonna press enter, then we're gonna go over, and then I'll make another else if. Now this is where it gets extremely easy. So you're just gonna copy and paste this else if that you just copied. So it says else if operator equals plus, all right? So if we have answer equals plus, this is how we add two variables together. It's just this simple. We just put a plus in between, and now we're gonna add two variables together. Now earlier we were putting plus next to strings, and that added the string with the variable. So that was like, oh, okay, I have this word and I want you to give me whatever value is right here and connect it and put it with this string and kind of make a word or a text for us to look at. Now this is us adding two variables together that are both floats. They are both mathematical numbers that the computer is looking at. So earlier the computer with strings, it's looking at it as text. But with floats, is looking at it as numbers. When we have numbers, we could perform operations with those numbers. So in the new answer variable, we are going to store in number1 plus number2. Now down here, when we do minus, we're gonna do the same thing. We just put a minus, and then all these things are automatically built in for us to do. We have answer number1 minus 2. So then we're gonna keep going, and I hope you see the pattern here. If you do, go ahead and pause and then skip ahead 10 seconds, and then you could go ahead and finish this up by yourself, maybe 20 seconds, because I do like to take a long time. But same thing goes on here. We do times for times, and then we times here. For here, we'll do division. I skipped ahead a little bit. I meant to go right here and put the times. And then same thing with the division, we could just put a slash, and it will divide the two numbers. Now, the only thing is when we divide here, let me pull up my calculator. So if I try to do a division by 0, so if I try to put in 0 and then I divide by 9, that will work. Oopsies. If I try to do 9 and I divide it by 0, that will be undefined. We cannot divide by 0. So we can divide 0 by 9, but we cannot divide a number by 0. So that is just something that we cannot do part of division. So what we're gonna have is a clause to check for that. So we're gonna make a nested if statement, just like the Russian nestling dolls. They're all inside of each other, and you like take one out, you take one out, you take one out. There used to be this Disney show that had Russian nestling dolls. If you know, you know. It was like way back in the day. It might be very old. I'm gonna go ahead and put a picture right here, but that is kind of the same thing that we have here. A nested if statement is an if statement that is inside of another if statement. So you remember that show, bro, you really got elite ball knowledge. I'm just playing, like, you just gotta be an early 2000s kid. If you're watching this as somebody even older than me, you're like, brother, what are we talking about? I was watching freaking He-Man and DuckTales back in the day, some random stuff, freaking Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, Tom and Jerry, no words type stuff. But all right, so we're gonna put print. I kind of just talked over that, but we have if number2 equals 0. So we're gonna check if our number that we're trying to divide by equals 0. Then we're just gonna simply print cannot divide by 0. And then we're gonna put continue, and what continue is going to do is it's going to send us back to the top of here to put in another number. So it's going to reset this so we could try another number instead of 0, because 0 did not work. So we're going to go to the top again, and we're going to run this one more time. All right, and then finally, we're going to go ahead and take this answer that I have right here. So this one will be different. Like I said, we're going to take answer. You could just cut it though, because we still will use it. We're just going to use it after we figure out if number is equal to 0. And we will properly align this. We want the A to be aligned with the F here. So I don't know what's going on. Let me see. I'm definitely gonna get an indentation error. I may or may not get one there, but we will go ahead and see this very quickly. I do have to get to the end of code to test this one, so any errors that I have, you'll see as well too, and then we'll try to fix those. So if you've been trying to run this the whole time, there's not really much to run, but we can try. Oh yeah, 0 colons. So let's make sure we put the colons at the end of every single line. I didn't do this not one time. I forgot to do this in the first video if you've seen it. And I did add my colon at the end of here, but I forgot every other colon going down this list. But enter your first number. I cannot put in A. That went ahead and gave us an error. So if I type in A right here, that gives us an error, but don't worry. We cannot put a float. We cannot put a number. We cannot put a letter into somewhere where we are forcing our input to be a float. That will give us an error. So anytime A is not a number, and that is the error that we will get. We could try to fix that. I challenge you to, but if not, I would try to do that at the end of the code. But we're gonna go ahead and put else, and then we're going to put print. And then what we're going to do is we're going to print invalid operator. Invalid operator. And then we are going to simply continue. We're going to simply continue. Now after we do that, we're going to print. And what are we going to print? We're going to print our answer, because we are finally done. And then lastly, we come back to that function we created at the very beginning. We're gonna have num1 equals, and then like I said, at the end of the code, we will be setting valid to false, which we are because we're calling the function. And remember, when the function first starts, the choose next underscore number. When this function starts, and we're going to pass in answer. When this function starts right here, we are going to go ahead and set valid to false. Now, let me make sure I use 2 O's up here, because I love to spell things wrong. And yep, I did not use 2 O's up here. So I'll continue to not use 2 O's, but you probably spelled choose correctly. So I'll just go ahead and add the O. But if you were rocking and typing everything in exactly as I had it, I got you to spell choose incorrectly. But go ahead and add the O real quick, and it makes no difference. It just helps us out here. And then now we can go ahead and put in the number 3 plus 3. I can't do it like that, but I have to put in plus and then ask for the second number and then say 3. That is going to be 6. Do I want to continue with this number? Yes. So then I'm going to put times. So I'm going to put the star, and then I will put times, and then my second number will be 60, because you can use whatever number you want. The numbers can be very large. Do I want to continue with this number? No, I don't. So now I cleared out, and now I'm back to the beginning, and I also technically have everything saved right here in front of me, so I can see all the numbers that I used before. I can see my answers. You know, like when you're using that iPhone calculator, you got to go to the history to see whatever answer you had, and then you got to redo the math. Right here, all the math is in front of you. So that is cool. That is clean. We have definitions, we have operators, we have variables, we have typecasting, a bunch of different things that we went over today in this episode. One thing that I do want to do is I'm going to go ahead and pause. All right, now we're going to resume. So anytime we use while true, something will run over and over again till we put break, then it will end. If we have something after, so while true doesn't necessarily mean while our code is running. It just means while our code is running until, of course, if we want to break, we can use break. So yes, while true does mean while our code is running. But if we break, we can end that while loop. That's any while loop. Any while loop where we put break, we can end the while loop by putting break. So what we're going to do here is, we're going to make a while true loop. So while our code is running, while true, what we're going to do is we're going to have to do something called try except. And what this basically means is we are going to try to, if you try to catch an error, if you have something that might throw an error, instead of it breaking your entire code, you will try to run it the first time. If it doesn't work, then we will go with what we know will work. All right, so we will do what we know will work. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to try, put a colon after this. We're going to try number float, enter your first number. Now, and then we're going to break out of this while loop that we just created and go into our next while loop if you enter a real number. Now, if it is going to throw an error, we're going to go with this instead. If it is going to give us an error, instead we're going to run our except line, and instead we're going to say print, please enter a number. All right, so then we're gonna say accept, and we're gonna say please enter a number. We could go ahead and put this num2. That will still be against the side. It will not be in this while loop. You can put it in the while loop underneath the try, and we don't need to put it in the while loop at all. Don't put it in the while loop. Just go ahead and leave this against the side. In the while loop will only be num1. And then if we have num1 in a lot of different places here, and we can't always try accept, but this is just something that we would do right here for our first one. Of course, you will still get an error, so we could try to type in a letter and then say please enter a number. So then we put in A, and then still please enter a number. Then we put in 3. Then if I put in plus, I will still get an error. If I put in D, please enter a number. D, please enter a number. Oh, great. So then I'm going to go ahead and put in 2. And then now we have 3 plus 2. Enter your first number. Your second number, please enter a number, please enter a number. So yeah, like I was saying, the try except will work right here, but again, we would need to put a try except and do this for each time that we have a num2. So the better way I would challenge you to do is to make a function for this, to make a function. And anywhere where we use num2, instead you call our function to get our number. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave this right here as is. I just wanted to show you this try except, and then now I'll leave it up to you to create your own function for you to go ahead and have try except for your number1 and your num2, and then everywhere where you have num2, you could go ahead and just put the function instead. Num2 will equal the function, just like we did down here with operators, and just like we did down here at the bottom. So I fully encourage you to go ahead and make your own definition if you want to continue with that. If not, you could just know, hey, this is a calculator. We can only put in numbers anyways. What am I doing putting in letters and typing in stuff in a calculator? What are you calculating? You can't calculate anything with numbers. I mean letters. So you should only be using numbers anyways. That's a valid take. But if you just want to go ahead and challenge yourself a little bit more, you could use this try except, but then you can use it in a definition. And your definition can be definition get number, and then you can try num1, and if it's a float, then you'll break. If it's not something that you can use as a float, you'll print please enter a number, and then you'll do the same thing. It'll just be called get a number, okay? And then instead of us putting num1 equals float, you just put num1 equals get a number. Same thing everywhere where we put float equals input 1, you just put equals get a number, and you would go right here, and then you would do the same thing that we did right here. But you would just put in a definition, and you would replace everywhere where you put the float input with try except or get a number, something along those lines. I want you to go ahead and test that out. Try that on your own, but I wanted to show you how to do this one time, so now you know how to replicate this in your own definition. I hope you have a great rest of your day. In the next video, I will try to get us a Kotlin tutorial. I've been really interested in creating my own apps with Kotlin, so eventually I'll get into that. If I end up coming up with any more Python things that I create for my classes that I end up not being able to use in class, and I just want to come share with you all, I'll make sure I do that. But yeah, next thing up you should expect is a Kotlin tutorial, but I might come back with another Python tutorial. I might come up with even a Scratch tutorial in a second, but I really want to aim for that Kotlin tutorial next, especially if I start getting more consistent with these uploads. But I hope you have a blessed day, a blessed week, a blessed night, a blessed month, a blessed year, and I hope you just, do right. What would Jesus do? Hope you have a great day.